What is good, everyone? It's Jagan, and today we'll be starting a little series that will basically be talking about potential Straw Hat matchups on Raftel. Who will they be matched up against? And if you do like these kind of matchup prediction, power scaling, character analysis type of videos, I'd really appreciate you subbing to the channel and dropping a like and or comment. And also, I'm more than willing to take video suggestions. Maybe if there's a certain character and or potential matchup that you'd like me to cover and give my take on. Or if it's just a miscellaneous One Piece topic in general, let me know. But for this series, I'll also be creating some theories on what potential devil fruits the Blackbeard Pirates may possess and or steal, because we all know these guys are some devil fruit merchants, hunting rare devil fruits, stocking up their crew like that. But as you can tell by the title of the video, the first Straw Hat we will be predicting is Sanji. And the reason we're starting with him is because I think we're just going to stick to the East Blue 5 for now on this series. I don't know, I might expand based on everyone's feedback and just how I'm feeling in general. But in Sanji's case, comparing him to his other East Blue 5 counterparts, I think it's fair to say that his matchup is the hardest to predict. It's not as set in stone like it is for a Luffy versus Blackbeard or an Usopp versus Von Augur. Like, those are very obvious matchups that almost have to happen. And obviously, again by the title, I'm sure you can guess that I decided to go with Burgess for Sanji's matchup. Obviously, someone like Lafayette would be very plausible. Both are skilled in stealth, have the ability to fly. And Joyboy actually has a video predicting all of the Straw Hat matchups against the Blackbeard Pirates, and he predicts Sanji's matchup will be against Pizarro. Basically tying his history back to the North Blue, because Pizarro did rule over a kingdom in the North Blue. And obviously, as we know, the Vinsmoke family is a royal bloodline that ruled the Germa kingdom and basically conquered the entire North Blue. So it's definitely possible there's a connection there, and the link to this video will be in the description if you are interested. But of course, my theory today will be about the possibility of facing Burgess. And before we get into that, I think it's important to establish Blackbeard's crew structure and address some of the misconceptions regarding their commander system. Because a lot of One Piece fans seem to think that the First Division commander is the strongest, and therefore Sanji has to fight the Second Division commander, Zoro has to fight the First commander, and so on till the end, and that is honestly not the case. Because as we know, Blackbeard has 10 Titanic captains, a very similar crew structure to his former captain, Whitebeard. Obviously, it doesn't have to be exactly 16 commanders like Whitebeard, but it's still a very high amount, right? Just like how Shanks modeled his crew structure after his captain, Gold D. Roger, having a smaller crew with amazing top subordinates, but not large enough to require a commander system. Then you have Big Mom and Kaido, also having a very similar crew structure amongst each other. 3 calamities, 3 sweet commanders who likely counterbalance each other very well, probably around the same level of strength. And in SBS, Oda actually talks about how that there is no hierarchy or strength rankings in Whitebeard's divisions. Yes, when Whitebeard died, Marco as the First Division commander did take over for them, but that's honestly just a schematic choice by Oda. It's a coincidence that he led the First Division. It has nothing to do with strength. There is no correlation in hierarchy either. And a super obvious example of this is Kozuki Oden actually being the Second Division commander and not the First, despite being by far the strongest commander Whitebeard had. So in my opinion, based on structure and influence, it's pretty fair to assume the same logic for Blackbeard's crew when it comes to strength and division commanders. If Nami was for some reason matched up against the First Division commander, then that commander she faces would still be the one relative to Nami's strength ranking in their respective crews. And that logic goes for everybody else in the crew. It doesn't matter what number division commander they face. So now that we've established the crew structure, let's talk about Sanji and Burgess. And again, there isn't too much information to go off right now. It's not as concrete as some of the matches we'll be predicting in the future, but I definitely think there's enough similar characteristics to make a solid prediction. And I definitely acknowledge that Frankie versus Burgess is also a very possible matchup here. They both have some similar characteristics, giving off those wrestler vibes, but let's get started on why I'm leaning towards Sanji. And I think the main counter argument to this is probably in the Dressrosa arc, because we saw that Burgess didn't exactly have the best showing there. He kind of got dog walked by Sabo, and therefore he's too weak to be fighting someone who is a top 3 strongest member in the Straw Hat crew. But I've personally never looked at it that way. I don't think Burgess is that weak relative to Dressrosa. For one, losing to Sabo should not be looked at in such a negative light. Honestly, he's a monster and arguably the second strongest character on Dressrosa behind Fujitora himself. And you know, obviously he's the number 2 of the Revolutionary Army. So that kind of status should justify being that strong. And on top of that, Burgess is still going to get a whole lot stronger. Remember, the Blackbeard Pirates are still fairly inexperienced crew. They are very inexperienced compared to their Yonko counterparts and should be looked at as a similar growth rate to the Straw Hats. Maybe not quite as big, but still a lot more opportunity for growth by the time we get to Raftel. lots of opportunities for fights and therefore hockey limbs, and on top of that, this isn't even mentioning the fact that he still doesn't have a devil fruit, which we know he clearly wants given his participation in the Dressrosa tournament. Obviously he did miss out on getting the Marimar Nomi, but we can't underestimate the potential boost a devil fruit will give him, and as you guys can tell by the title of the video, I don't think he's getting just any devil fruit, but one of the most hacks ones in the series being Marco's Phoenix fruit, which I'll elaborate on later in the video. But even if that's not the devil fruit he gets, I'm sure the one he gets will be super impactful and give him a massive boost. So another reason I think that Sanji vs Burgess could definitely be the matchup is because of some similar characteristics they have, especially when it comes to combat style, both being martial artists. Burgess is obviously very physically strong, most of his martial arts techniques coming from his upper body strength, such as his Hado elbow and Galleon lariat. He also has very underrated mobility as well, like we saw in Dressrosa when he jumped all the way down from the Dressrosa palace to the second level without even a single scratch. And we know Sanji is also someone who's very gifted in mobility, very incorporated into his fighting style, and some of his opponents have a lot of those characteristics as well. I also think Burgess fits the personality of somebody Sanji usually faces in an arc, having a very loud, obnoxious, quirky, goofy personality trait. So I definitely think when it comes to personality, Burgess is kind of similar to like the Bon Clay, the Jabra, the potentially Queen matchup in Wano if Sanji gets that. And oftentimes it's a funny contrast to the opponent Zoro gets, who are usually calm and collected, laid back, more stoic, and of course swordsmen. But like I was mentioning with Queen the Plague potentially being a good matchup for Sanji on Wano and how his personality description is very similar to Burgess, I also noticed a couple other small similarities between the two, such as the mechanical arm that Queen possesses. It's very similar in design choice to what Burgess fought with in the Colosseum. Burgess also on Lockdown was considered a champion grappler, basically having his own little mini wrestling tournament on Jaya upon his introduction. It's very similar to how Queen led the Sumo Inferno in the Udon prison, basically having his own little mini tournament there. I think Sanji being matched up against a very tough Ancient Zone user in Wano will be very great for his growth as a combatant, and could be something he improves upon further in his matchup on Raftel. What I'm looking for in these Raftel battles is for basically them to be the final tests for the Straw Hat Pirates, a fight that gets them over the hump, overcoming their weaknesses and being molded into the best versions of themselves possible, becoming the worthy members of the Pirate King's crew. And as great of an all-around fighter that Sanji is, I think what he's been lacking is the destructive capability so far. So through whatever means necessary, I think overcoming the insane durability of a Zoan like Queen would be a great test. And if Sanji is going to defeat an ancient Zoan like Queen, perhaps maybe through a combination of his best Diable Jambre techniques in conjunction with the raid suit abilities, then maybe this will lead to the Raftel battle being a step above that against a mythical Zoan. And it's not just the Zoan theme, but it's the fact that this particular Phoenix Zoan could give Sanji this all-around battle that he needs, one that highlights his best qualities as well as overcomes his worst qualities. And in Marco's case, yes, I do believe the possibility is high that Marco will die in Wano, and that Blackbeard will eventually show up. Obviously, he missed this opportunity to obtain Marco's fruit in the Payback War, but if he shows up at the end of the Wano War, when the entire alliance is weakened and on their last legs, I think he would seize this opportunity for such an amazing devil fruit because, as we know, him and his crew are hunting for rare devil fruits. I think it's a funny fact that Burgess is the captain of the first ship of the Blackbeard Pirates and Marco was the first division commander of Whitebeard, so I could definitely see Oda doing some twisted irony here, kind of just rubbing the salt in the wound, giving Blackbeard's 1st Division commander the same fruit as Marco, the 1st Division commander of Whitebeard, the same way Blackbeard obtained Whitebeard, the captain's devil fruit. It could be a good way to have an emotional moment on Wano being his death kind of intertwined with the final battle on Raftel. But like how earlier I was talking about Sanji potentially getting past the durability of Queen, if Burgess got this power up, it would be Sanji's greatest test yet. This fight will determine the best martial artist between the two crews, Sanji's blackleg style versus Burgess's strong upper body wrestling techniques. It will also determine who's the better aerial combatant. That's something that's been highlighted in Sanji's skill set for a long time now with his skywalk, and Burgess being a phoenix would give him the opportunity to do so. I find it kind of weird how Sanji has never had a true one-on-one that has to do with aerial combat, so I'm thinking Oda might finally incorporate this on Raftel. Especially now that he's got the raid suit, it only comes easier. He can basically skywalk in the raid suit without having to expend any energy. And finally, and most importantly, I think Sanji's signature techniques with Diable Jambre are going to have to be maximized here. The fiery passion that he exhibits with his Diable Jambre will have to bypass the blue flames of ultimate regeneration in the Phoenix. And in mythology, legends say that sometimes the Phoenix dies in a show of flames and combustion. So in my opinion, from a technical aspect, there would be no better combination of character and combat tendencies that would allow Sanji to bring out his max potential. And I don't think there needs to be an overly complex narrative that connects the Straw Hats necessarily to all of their Raftel matchups, right? I'm not saying that that can't happen, you know, he could incorporate something like that, but I think Sanji already has more than enough motivation, as this will literally be his fight, his contribution to making Luffy the Pirate King. But that's going to do it for me today. I appreciate you guys taking the time to watch. I know it's definitely possible Sanji ends up fighting someone else and that the Devil Fruit theory can seem a little wild, but I just truly believe that that would be the best case scenario for Burgess as a combatant and somebody who could bring the best out of Sanji. But let me know who you guys think Sanji's potential matchup will be on Raftel, and if that opponent might obtain a rare Devil Fruit. And make sure you guys like and subscribe so you won't miss the next couple of videos in this series. I think Usopp is going to be the next one. So once again, appreciate you guys taking the time to watch. I'm Jagan, and I'll catch you guys next time.